Welcome along to some bonus content from the Daftaboutcraft podcast. If you've listened to our most recent episode, you'll have heard during our drink-along section that we were joined by Paul from our sponsor Hall Beer in Stourbridge, and we actually cut that audio down a little bit to fit it all in, so we're going to present to you now the extended full version of our conversation with Paul and some interesting views on the craft beer scene. Okay, it's a bit you've all been waiting for. It is time for the drink-along on Daftaboutcraft, brought to you with our sponsor Hall, and this time it's a drink along with a real big difference because Hall are actually here.
Hi Dave.
Oh, it's Paul from Hall. Hi Paul.
Half of the all.
Yeah, this is Paul, the all from Hall. And now, if you've never heard the drink along before, it's 3 beers that Hall kindly provide for us, and hopefully you bought them, you've seen them on our socials, and you're going to drink them as we talk about them and just have a talk about life in general and the craft beer scene in general. I suppose we should tell people a bit about Hall, for those who don't know. This is probably your domain.
Yeah, so Hall started with myself and my wife Hannah last year in the heart of lockdown. Call it a midlife crisis, call it what you want, but it was a long time coming, probably 3 years in the planning, on and off we think. And we procrastinated and put it off for way too long. And finally, lockdown happened. And then we thought, look, if we don't do it now, we'll never do it. So, you know, what's life going to throw at us? So what else can we lose? Let's go all in now and things can only get better. Hopefully, he says, with fingers crossed. So, yeah, we started, I think it was actually, we opened our shop a year ago, last weekend. We've been trying to do the maths on that, and I think that's right.
Oh, okay.
But we'd actually been running an online mail order service for, I'd say, 6 weeks to 2 months before that prior. And that went pretty well, so we needed the physical premises to go along with that, really. So the shop was the next step in that. So, yeah, we opened as a bottle shop during lockdown, and that went pretty well, you know. People always need beer. Pubs weren't there to offer it, so we had a good start. When we were allowed to, we were able to open our tap room, which was always going to be the plan. So that's kind of gone from strength to strength. Here we are today, and obviously the highlight of all this has been sponsoring the Daftaboutcraft podcast.
Of course, yeah. Of course. I can imagine.
I couldn't have imagined this point in our career when we first started.
The great thing for me is that, for those who don't know, Hall is literally a couple of miles down the road from where I live. So now I've got a brilliant bottle shop and tap room right on my doorstep, pretty much. It's fantastic. 6 lines with always something different on, and those 6 lines are going to grow as well soon, Paul. We're
about to hit phase 2 or 3 or 4. I forget how many phases we've done now, but we're about to go into the next stage of our life as certainly as a tap room, but maybe even transition to more of a bar. So things are afoot.
It's very exciting
to redo areas of the building and up capacity and up the tap lines, and you know, and our offerings and different beer styles. So yeah, we're really excited.
A slightly worrying thing for me is that I already spend far too much time and far too much money in there. And,
you keep the lights on down.
Right, we've got these beers, 3 drink-alongs. We're going to start off with this raspberry wheat beer from Polly's.
Now, I've got to confess, I'm not a huge wheat beer fan, but Polly's rarely put a foot wrong when they sort of deviate from their classic pale IPA remit, I think. So I'm looking forward to this one.
We should probably tell people as well that you guys really know what you're talking about as well when it comes to beers. You're not
sometimes
not like us jokers.
Depends how many beers we've had and how confident we are. But yeah, we're doing our beer sommelier course, the Cicerone course as it is. Yeah, we're getting there. We're doing our due diligence and trying to practice what we preach, really.
He was even caught drinking some McEwen's Export the other day.
Now I've explained the rationale behind that. Right? Yeah, we did a beer tasting last night, actually, as part of our course. And one of the really interesting parts of the Cicerone course on level 2 is you get to compare beers which you will not associate with each other. So last night was comparing a Belgian double to a Scottish export, and although I don't think anyone's going to accuse McEwen's Export of being anywhere near the quality of Chimay, which is the double we had, you could definitely see where the similarities were. The comparison was really, really interesting. And actually, I haven't tried McEwen's Export in about 20 odd years, and it was all right. A can was probably too much for one person, but it was all right.
It's weird, isn't it? I would instantly think, no, don't want it. Don't want to drink that. Not interested. You're selling it well there.
If I came across McEwen's Export on draft or on cask in a pub in the Highlands in front of a fire, it'd be absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of beers are all about the moment, aren't they? And the atmosphere and all the rest of it. Talking of which, this is really quite odd because Paul is physically right opposite me now. Dave B has gone. He's skedaddled. He's off on his honeymoon already. He mentioned it earlier. He's gone. So we've got Paul for the drink along here. And Dave B is usually at the other end of the computer screen, but Paul is opposite me. So this is, we're talking about environments and the right atmosphere. It's quite odd just drinking with somebody up here.
Yeah. It's a cracking little setup as well, actually. But Dave B's in Scotland, unless I've got that very, very wrong.
He is in Scotland.
Yeah, so there we go. There's a connection.
Maybe he's going to reach for the McEwen's while he's there. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Dave B, when you listen to this, we know what you've been drinking up there.
So, what do we think of this then? I quite like this.
Yeah, I mean, raspberry wheat beer. It's kind of done exactly what I thought it was going to do. There's that kind of slight sourness to it. It's kind of Berliner Weisse, but obviously it's 5.9, so you can't really accuse it of being a Berliner Weiss, but it's got that kind of sour, obviously raspberry, sort of fruited background to it, but it's nice and tart, very bitter as well. It's good. Honestly, I've never had a bad Polly's beer when they've turned their hand to something outside their usual sort of core pales and IPAs, so this is good. Yeah,
wheat beers are something that I would never go to for me. Being a raspberry wheat beer, there's lots of, that raspberry's right to the fore, isn't it?
Yeah. Definitely, it's the tartness which is nailed there, which is really good.
Now, talking about different beers and what have you, you went to I went to Brew London. You didn't go to that one. You went to the Craft Beer Festival in London, didn't you, recently?
Yeah, that was a good time. we hadn't been out properly for a while actually, so it was chaos.
And you went on the Saturday session, didn't you? The daytime.
Yeah, myself and Hannah went with a couple of friends.
And I think what our listeners really want to know is how many beers you checked in.
I can't remember the figure.
You know.
I actually can't remember the figure, but it was approaching 40 odd.
It was more than 40.
Was it really? That's disgusting.
Yeah.
What a ridiculous person. But no, there was there's method behind the.
It's not as bad as
method behind the
sounds.
The casual alcoholism. Yeah, so we kind of went out of way to try as much as possible. So all four of us would go off and grab what we wanted to try and then share it, which is clearly not COVID safe. But hey, we're all in a bubble. Yeah, it was a long weekend and it didn't stop on the Saturday. We went out on the evening as well, and then carried on Sunday down the Bermondsey Mile.
What were your standouts on the Bermondsey Mile?
Well, the ones I wanted to go to were closed, so that was a good start. And we actually started off at the wrong end, so we went all the way down to the Three Hills end and the Colonel end, and they were all closed. We should have checked that first. We had to walk another sort of mile and a half, hot and thirsty and dehydrated for some reason. I don't know why that was, from the night before, I think. And then, when we got there to the top end where Cloudwater sits, we sort of got into it. My kind of standouts were Anspach and Hobbs Day. I've had some of their stuff before, actually, but they do that kind of mixed firm stuff really, really well, and I had a couple of their sort of mixed firm pals and IPAs. We all agreed were really, really good. And I'm probably going to get fired from the beer drinkers guild or whatever it is, if there is one, where it was Hawks' Cidery.
Wow,
was really, really good. But again, I think we were saying on just before this started, the weather and the location always helps. Yeah. And we had some really, really good ciders there, which really hit the spot. And again, not a cider connoisseur by any stretch. Often avoid cider, but I've had a lot of ciders recently, which I'll just go, why am I drinking more cider? I should be drinking more cider. Because
You know why it is? Because most of the time when you go to normal pubs, you just offered the standard Thatchers and Strongbow and all the rest of it, aren't you? That's what it is.
Yeah, and that's a shame. I mean, there's a couple of local pubs certainly around by us who do really good cider offerings, but yeah, they do kind of veer towards that over-carbonated, fizzy stuff, or you get that kind of almost overwhelmingly fruity, scrumpy type thing, which is almost undrinkable for me.
Yeah. Right, so we're pretty much through the Pollies there, which we both enjoyed. So we're going to go on to our next one now. So if you're drinking along with us, literally, get your can of Fallen Acorn out, your New England IPA, and get ready to pour it. I've got high expectations of this one, Paul, because Fallen Acorn, all of a sudden, are a huge, massive upward trajectory.
Yep. Yeah, certainly in terms of quality. I don't know if that trajectory's followed with their popularity at all, but I just rate this brewery so highly. Again, they've kind of cut their teeth on all the classic styles you'd expect from a craft brewery. Their stouts have been brilliant.
Just knockout, aren't they?
Knockout. So they're big imperial stouts as well. I'm thinking specifically of things like Revenge of the Sith Faced, which, you know, is a sort of 10.5%, 11%, whatever it was, impy. It was just so well balanced and so easy drinking, and it was just a wonderful experience. And yeah, everything we have by them, everything we have in the shop.
It's weird though, because if you rewind 12 months, you didn't hear so much about Fallen Acorn at all, did you?
No, they haven't got that kind of glitzy PR going for them.
That's true.
That kind of self-imposed demand that the craft beer industry dictates must happen every time something interesting comes out, and you know, they and sort of cultivates that want and that FOMO. They haven't really had that, although, you know, everything's been reviewed really highly.
They just literally go about their work quietly.
They remind me of the Colonel in that regards, and I will mention the Colonel 1,000 times during this because I'm a bit of a fanboy. But I think the more you drink, the more you experiment with, and the more different types of beer you try, it becomes very apparent that you really appreciate that sort of classical style approach that the really good quality breweries do, and they don't have to show off about it.
Yeah.
And it feels like Fallen Acorn falls into that.
So what do we make of this then? New England IPA called Crystal Haze, Citra, Simcoe, and the slightly divisive Cascade in there as well.
Very divisive Cascade. This has got that kind of... It's not mixed ferment, it's not fermented in any way, shape or form outside of the standard fermentation progress, but this has that taste a little bit to it. Now, that could be the Cascade actually throwing its usual wobbly. But I think with this, it balances really nicely. It's an IPA classed as New England, but again, this is where that sort of divisive blurred line has come in, because I'm getting more of a West Coast push on that.
If you look at that colour, it is almost West. It's that West Coasty yellow almost, isn't it? That yellowy orange.
And the aroma and the that sort of bitterness forward approach is definitely there.
It smells quite West Coasty as well, actually.
Yeah, it smells really West Coasty, and that kind of definite, this is a New England, this is a West Coast categorisation, I think is dying a death. It's a marketing thing, let's be honest, and things are always going to overlap, but this is really, really good. And again, 7.2, dangerous. Because it doesn't
taste like
7.2. Although there is a little bit of chewiness you get with those kind of really big IPAs. I'm liking how they sort of hesitate calling it a double IPA, although it's kind of going towards that. It's another great beer.
I was saying to Paul before, where we are here, we were sort of in a loft, and you have to climb a ladder, obviously, to get up here. But if you're drinking this too fast and too many of them, you needed to get to the toilet in a hurry.
Yeah, I feel like I've been fritz all day, Dave, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm going to run off and just shut the hatch in a bit and leave you up here.
It's like a boozy Anne Frank. But just kind of going back to Fallen Acorn, I think we were mentioning a while back and talking outside of this, where we were like, you know, these kind of big hype breweries, and Fallen Acorn don't fall into that kind of hype at all that I've seen anyway. Could be wrong. And I think you mentioned Staggeringly Good as a good example, as, you know, these kind of breweries come out of nowhere, explode all over the place, and literally in the case of Staggeringly Good's Wrecker, and they do these fundamentally bonkers beers. You know, could be good, could be bad. Staggeringly Good have been very, very good, actually, in an interesting way. And then they kind of just disappear.
Yeah. And
that hype's over really quickly. And there's quite a few breweries around on that. I don't know if you know of any, but for me, it feels like the hype is going to happen around certain beer styles. I get that. But this industry is so damn fickle. It's built on knowing something that other people don't know for the most part. And that kind of hype machine kind of funds and sort of puts this tailwind behind new breweries in the best possible way. But when they sort of plateau and then disappear out of that hype, they really struggle to gain traction. Yeah. And that's a real shame, because you miss out on a lot of good quality beers from really great breweries who have been built up too much by this sometimes terrible fanboy industry.
Yeah. But we all kind of help that along, don't we? You know, I've got to get this, got to get this. I'm very guilty of this. I'll see something, get it, talk it up.
Oh, you're the worst.
And I'm, the worst, indeed. But then that can't go on forever, can it? That's the thing. It has to stop at some point. And then, like we say, breweries tend to plateau. You don't hear much about them anymore. And people move on to the next brewery then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's always a bigger fish. It's a shame sometimes because it becomes a bit of a cult of personality, to reference an amazing funk rock song from the 80s. Is it a good thing? I don't know, but you typically get brewers who have made a name themselves at bigger breweries who then move on to do their own setups, and that's great. A lot of hype follows that. I'm thinking New Barns off the top of my head. Yeah. So, the pedigree of the brewers that set up New Barns is absolutely fantastic, and the beers they created, their core range initially, were all brilliant and very classically styled. But the hype died off almost overnight, to the point where I'm really struggling as a shop owner. We're really struggling to find what they're doing now.
Yeah.
Now that could be by design from them, and it could be laying low, but that hype is so fickle.
It's all our fault. We just want that next big thing, don't we? Move on, tick it off. We've had that. Next, please.
Well, second Colonel reference incoming, but if I had my way, there's a joke between myself and Hannah. If I had my way, we'd just have fridges full of Colonel. In fact, I'd rebrand as a Colonel bar and just have Colonel, because they've nailed their brief.
Yeah.
And I really like the sort of low-key approach to it as well. And I like the fact that people come in to the shop, don't know anything about them, but go for the colourful can next to it, and then sort of dismiss Colonel because they're drab beige paper wrapping, basically. And you just think, oh man,
you missed a good one there.
You missed something there, yeah. But
when I first got into the scene, I had a bit of Colonel. Yeah, it's good. Let's try the brightly coloured cans instead. They must be better. But now, going full circle, I've gone back to Colonel, and I love a Colonel now.
Yeah.
You appreciate that quality, that consistent quality, don't you?
Definitely. Glasshouse is another one you've mentioned with a local brewery to us. Local, it's in Birmingham, so not a million miles away, but we'll call them local. We'll claim them. You were saying you thought they were going to be like the next big thing this year.
Yeah, I thought they'd be massive this year.
And they really had a massive tailwind behind them back end of last year. And they haven't died off because they're still producing beers, but nothing's knocked me out. But I can't remember last year being knocked out by Glasshouse. I think what I really liked about Glasshouse was the quality, the consistency of their quality, should I say. They had a few duff ones, but if you're producing that much beer, like all brews are, you're going to have that kind of ratio. But I think Glasshouse kind of hit use the word plateau already, but they plateaued.
It's a great word, isn't it?
It's great, but they plateaued in terms of quality, and I don't mean in a bad way, but they hit that kind of run.
Yeah,
that's not exciting enough for people.
It's not to say their beers aren't good. They are good.
They're very good.
They're nearly always good, and they're at a certain level. But people just want that exciting next big thing, don't they?
Yeah. Where's their dragon fruit?
Exactly.
Milkshake, IPA, and licorice exploding Vice beer. It's they're never going to do that. They've kind of nailed this sort of pale IPA.
Yeah.
Like most beer. I know it's a bit boring to say, but that's the core of most beer, most breweries, and they've nailed that, and they're knocking out consistent quality. But it's just not changing enough. But I guess that's the demand from having to rebrand and rebadge your core recipes as different things each time.
Yeah.
And that's one of the main problems to me about the industry, really. And I blame Tiny Rebel for that.
Oh, the Tiny Rebel hate's coming in there.
Well, amongst others, but they're problematic of this desperate need for big investors to have product on the shelves as opposed to quality.
Well, you won't have heard this yet, but we've done it before you came in here. The Hyper Tripe this time is that massive stout, the 18% one from Tiny Rebel.
I'll save you a session. It's Tripe.
Well, funny you should say that, because that's the conclusion we reached.
Now, I mean, again, Tiny Rebel, right? So they've done some brilliant beers, absolute trailblazers back in the day. Their marshmallow porters, stuff like that. Absolutely fantastic.
Leave it alone. Stop trying to make it bigger and better.
Stop it. Just put it down. Stop playing. Stop. Like that. You want to slap the hand.
Yeah.
Put it away. But, as soon as you get this kind of big bulk investment behind you from people who don't really care about the product, what they really care about is putting bums on seats in terms of product lines in the supermarkets and keeping people engaged, then you are going to have a smoked bacon and strawberry trifle double IPA.
But I do think that some people are just seduced by these beers and they think, well, look, here's an 18% stout. This is going to be great. And often it isn't.
No. I'm struggling to think of a really high ABV, silly high ABV beer that I've genuinely enjoyed. I think the biggest beer I've had, which I've gone, okay, that's touching the limits, but that's still actually a really enjoyable beer, is I think it was... Hannah will kill me because she's not here. I think it was a Keys Stout, and I can't remember what it was called.
Okay, yeah.
But that was about 13.5%.
Yeah.
And that was borderline strong spirit. But it balanced incredibly well in what they were trying to do. And it was a small can, and you didn't see it all over the place as well, marketed as the next big thing. And it was just try these. And that was great. But yeah, as soon as you go into those big figures, it's just... You're just losing what a beer is, which is meant to be balanced, four balanced ingredients, producing drinkable, quaffable.
All we could get from that 18% stout was just booze.
It's booze. Booze burn, yeah. You know, people who kind of talk with absolute pride and glee about, when they used to drink the really strong Brewdog beers. I tried that and it, it was really, really good. He just, no, it wasn't. I tried, Sink the Bismarck when that came out. I remember drinking that and going, this is like the worst experience I've ever had in my entire life drinking alcohol. And I used to drink, 2020 when I was as a teenager.
2020. Did you drink it over the park?
Of course. I thought
it's the only place you can drink it.
That was the law. Actually, it wasn't the law, it was the opposite. But yeah, it was the law of the land. So yeah, I don't know. It's just gimmicks for the sake of gimmicks. And Brewdog started it. Tiny Rebel have capitalised on it. And,
yeah.
And shame to say, but I think Northern Monk as well, going down that route fast.
Do you mean to say you've not had the latest Ron Seal?
I didn't want to mention the Ron Seal thing, but just varnish your fence and go away. It's just gimmicks and pageantry for the sake of selling units, and it's whatever.
I think when they did the cheese and onion and the prawn cocktail goes as well.
You're not even making that up. That's actually a thing they did.
And I had the goes thinking, I can see how maybe it might just work. It didn't. It was absolutely awful. And the cheese and onion is still in the fridge. I can't even bring myself to open the thing,
I was trying to imagine the meetings I had when the brewers were running. Go, right, got it. This is what's happening. We're basing it on, Chris from our youths. Okay, ready salted maybe for the gozer? Oh, no. Prawn cocktail, my friend. Because shellfish and beer. Mind you, stouts and oysters. Why has no one done that yet?
Put it out there. Somebody will do it.
Yep, there we go, Northern Monk.
Give that a go.
There you go, you can sack your marketer now.
Well, we've pretty much demolished that one, the New England, so we should move on to our third one. So grab your can of Brick Brewery's Two Ways, if you've got it there, which is a collab with Pastore from Cambridgeshire. Massive fan of Pastore. They've got high hopes for this one.
Collab with Brick, as you're saying. Brick are one of those breweries that don't want to reinvent the wheel. If anything, they want to regress. And I don't want to mention Colonel, but
you do. You really do.
I really do. But the parallels are there. They do that sort of classical brewing. Actually, their can art isn't particularly anything to think home about. Their branding isn't. They call their beers really basic things like bog standard beer. I exaggerate, but you know what I mean. And yet through all of that, they've made a name for themselves through really good quality standardised brewing. And I think that's what we were talking about earlier, in terms of sometimes you don't need the flash.
No.
You just need the chance and the time to do something good.
And have I imagined it, or are Brick actually in Marks and Spencer's?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. I could be wrong about that. Don't know.
I have a vague idea maybe they are. We were talking about this off air a little bit because we were talking about how Polly's slipped into Marks and Spencer's and sort of almost under the radar. But you have a policy at Hall where you won't stock some of these big players that are in supermarkets, don't you?
Yeah, obviously the Brick thing has completely decimated that, but no.
I could be wrong. Don't take that as gospel. I'm probably wrong.
It's complicated. Yeah. So the reality was when we started, we went all righteous and said if you can get certain breweries in supermarkets, then we wouldn't be stocking it. However, that line is becoming increasingly blurred.
Yeah.
Polly's been a really good example of that. So Polly's are easily one of our sort of most popular breweries. Everyone loves Polly's. Polly's came out a while back with their policies about selling into Marks and Spencer's. And the reason we decided to carry on selling Polly's, even though that kind of went against our core principles, is they said they were only going to do certain lines at a certain quantity that wouldn't be available to independent beer shops. And in fact, the independent beer shops would have a vote on if they could do that. And they were really transparent in their PR.
Right.
And we appreciated that. And that's all I think we as small independent retailers want to know is, have the breweries considered the people who help them get to where they are?
Yeah, exactly.
And they have, and they've so far they've stayed true to their promises, and that's good. Same with Cloudwater to a degree. Cloudwater only agreed to put specific lines into the supermarket, which were maybe they were based on other recipes already got, but they're certainly branded to be supermarket ones, and they wouldn't distribute their more, I guess, unique stuff or their sort of smaller batch stuff to supermarkets, only to independents. I guess that's what we want. That's all we want, is the kind of nod that we've been considered and thought about. At the end of the day, I do not buy this nonsense argument that people are going to go to Tesco and go, hey, I've just bought this great beer from Cloudwater. I'm now going to go to the shop just down the road and spend £8 on every can I can get so I can really soak up what they really have to offer. It's not going to happen. It's nonsense.
Well,
and that has never, ever happened.
Maybe not immediately, but maybe over a period of time it might happen. We were talking, I sort of first got into it by buying your Vocations in Tesco's, and now I don't bat an eyelid at spending 15 quid on a can of whatever,
Sure enough, and I think time will tell, but I'm and there is always going to be a small percentage of people, and I think it will be a small percentage of people that will happen to, and that's great. If that's a
weirdos,
if that's a win, that's a win. Yeah, weirdos like you, Dave. I really can't see. The data's not there at the moment to see if there's any long-term positive effects on the smaller retail by enforcing or propping up the big supermarkets. I know they need their help against us. I mean, man, we are demolishing them. But
this is why you won't find Tiny Rebel on your shelves and Vocation on your shelves.
Yes. They're easy targets. I mean, we know. I mean, as soon as you get a big investment behind you, you're no longer the I don't know. I'm an old punk at heart, I just love the notion of the craft artisan person, whichever walk of life they are, coming up good and taking down the establishment. Life's not like that, but it's really easy to target Brewdog and Tiny Rebel and go, not in my shop, because they've done themselves a disservice, not only in their brewing but also in their business lives.
But you're holding firm on what you believe is the right way to do things.
Yeah, and this industry's still new. It's been going for a long time, but it's still new industry. Everyone's still finding their feet. The relationship between brewers and independent bottle shops is symbiotic. The government doesn't even register or recognise bottle shops as bars. We slipped through the cracks when the COVID grants were happening. It's like, but there's a relationship between retailer and producer there, and it's a brilliant one for the most part, and it's fantastic. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to get into this industry: the love of their product and their craft. And we wanted to be part of that in some small way to help present that to the world. But we can't say where this is going to go. The Polly's thing is going to be really interesting to watch. The Cloudwater thing is definitely going to be interesting to watch because they've got some clout now, Cloudwater. But they, the big supermarkets are going after small breweries now, and they're trying to get them on board. Will there be a defiance? Will there be a pushback? Will there be some kind of outcry just to support the independents? God, we hope so. But let's see. But I think there's always going to be a space for us because breweries are coming through all the time.
More and more, aren't they?
More and more. So
do you think there's still a long way do you think there's still a lot of expansion to come in the craft scene?
Yes. It's a strange thing now, because we're in this world of... We have been for a while, actually. The world of YouTube, for example, and social media, where not only can a brewery market themselves well, but also wannabe brewers can home brew to a really high standard.
Yeah, really good.
Not just with the equipment that's available, but also the breadth of knowledge that's available. We had a guy come into our shop today who's one of our semi-regular customers, and he was talking about his home brew and how he basically contacted Wild Beer. And he contacted Nothing Bound in Bewdley, again, one of our sort of semi-local brewers. And he said, "Can I have your recipes to my favourite beers?" And they said, "Yeah."
Really? Wow.
And they gave it him. And in fact, Wild Beer, he said, "Come down to the brewery and I'll show you how we make it." And he did. And the outcome of that is he's done that with as many brews as he can.
Wow.
And he's had a pretty good hit rate with the response, and he's now mimicking his favourite brews, and he thinks
he's going to be working for one of those fairly soon.
Well, he thinks it's pretty good, and he's going to bring some in for me when it's done, hopefully, just to try, because I was really, really keen to see if they do compare in any way, shape, or form. But just the fact that there's this knowledge sharing in the industry. It's like grassroots football, it's the people who are kind of get into the higher points, and they're hitting the peak of their skill sets. They're passing on their knowledge immediately. That's brilliant. What an industry. I can't think of many places or industries or, communities where that's so passionate and so freely giving in its knowledge share. So that's really exciting. So expansion is happening regardless. If it's going to be the point of there's just breweries coming up below the ones that get bigger and bigger, and they dissipate into the ether with selling out to bigger breweries. Probably, I don't know. Maybe it's just going to be just repeating itself.
Yeah, maybe
ad infinitum. I don't know, but for now, it just feels really vibrant.
One of the most exciting things on the podcast that we do is talk to people, small breweries who are still getting out there, and we've come across some brilliant breweries and some amazing beers we'd never have found if we weren't searching these people out. Mm-hmm. But they're sort of lying under in the depths of the scene, and they haven't come through yet. But there's some brilliant breweries out there.
I mean, but look what it takes to become a well-renowned brewer now. Some level of half-decent equipment, doesn't have to be very good.
Yeah.
And just the willingness to go through a lot of hours, burn through a lot of time and hours and experimentation, just to produce something that you believe people enjoy drinking. And if you look at Elusive, he's got a really great name in the industry now, but he's still literally one man in a shed, and it just happens that shed is in a prominent location so people walk past and buy his stuff, but that's all he is, and it's just him doing everything, know.
And a lot of these breweries are like that. He's literally one man.
Yeah. And
without his dog.
That's what it is. I mean, so, the scalability of the industry is a really strange one, because you can go from, I guess, small batch brewery with one or two people running the whole show and getting your products into the right independent bottle shops and getting that buzz. But the next step up seems to be 80 people working there and then you're selling to Tesco.
Yeah.
There's a kind of weird middle ground which are only populated by the Pollys of the world and people like that. And that's the tipping point, it seems, at this point. So it'd be good to see what the scalability of this industry is, and if we can actually get to a point where you go, okay, we're a 20-man brewery, we do everything in-house, our marketing, our PR, our finance, we're self-funded, and we're able to sort of jump between the independent world and the sort of more commercial world. We just don't know, because it seems like it's happening now, but I don't know.
What I find interesting, I spend a lot of time in your shop, far too much time. If you look at the sort of people who come in, there's a massive mix of people who come through that door. Not just the craft nerds like me, but people just going out for a drink. They will stop by, they will come in. They might not know much about craft beer, but they'll come in and you'll talk to them and explain it to them. And people come in and have a look at the fridge. They might not know much, but they're not... People seem to be less intimidated by the scene than maybe they were a year or so ago.
Yeah, I think so. And geography is going to be important. I mean, we're in a pretty... my hometown, by the way, so I'm allowed to say this. We're in a pretty provincial little backwater town in the Black Country. with a history of classic cask brewing, which permeates it. And what you get then is obviously the craft beer scene, people who seek stuff out, and we've got a really good crowd that come in on a regular basis, including yourself, Dave. And what you also have then is the people who walk past you, walk in and go, right, I was brought up on Banks's, I drink Bathams, cask beer and nothing. If it's not warm, it's not good, that kind of thing. What am I drinking?
Yeah. What have you got?
So typically what I say is Colonel.
Never.
Yeah,
Four.
That's the fourth one. So I think
you get a bonus drink if you get to 5.
Yep. And what you start realising is you need to break people's mentality of what a beer is, because so I'm 44 years old. I was brought up in this kind of black country-esque rationale that cask beer is beer, anything else is just intimidation.
Yeah.
It's imitation, should I say. Lager is terrible, blah blah blah. All the old fart kind of mentality around beer. But the reality is, it's just breaking that misconception of things, and at the end of the day, beer's 4 ingredients. It's just what you do and do those to combine them and prepare them in advance that gives the beer you want. So typically you can find that kind of breakthrough brewery or that breakthrough style which is going to connect with people, be it the bitterness of classic best bitter, or be it through the maltiness of sort of more malt forward mild, for example, that people are brought up on. And that's, once you hit that and you get people involved, that's great. And I think the reason tap rooms are so important is because they don't give you the ability to walk into your comfort zone. You're going to have to drink something that you don't perhaps recognise or you wouldn't actually go for. And I think that's why most tap rooms will offer, not pints, but maybe thirds, halves, 2/3. And that's really exciting. And I think it is generating a buzz and it is getting people on board. Certainly in our little town, people who you would never have thought would come back a second time, come back every other day. So
that must be really satisfying to see from your point of view.
Yeah, it is. But that's testament to the quality of the produce that's out there. This amazing stuff the brewers are doing.
The Colonel, yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you've heard of Colonel, but
that's 5. We got it.
But I just drink Colonel, everyone. I'll just wrap it all up. It's all Colonel from now. But I think there's a seed change in the world when it comes to this. I mean, America have been way in advance of us for a long time, regardless of what people who come into our shop who drink cask beer say. America are a decade beyond where the UK was. That gap is closing rapidly. But the stuff that we're getting, not just locally, but around the region from Europe as well, is just outstandingly good. And the outstanding part of it is it's small brewers doing this stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's remarkable, and I'm so proud to be part of this. A tiny little cog in this big machine.
The passion really comes across. It's great to see it.
I mean, at the end of the day, come on, at the end of the day, it's beer. You know what I mean? We're not changing the world, but what we're doing is feeding the soul a little bit. And
absolutely,
when you sit there and drink with a bunch of people who you don't know, we don't know each other brilliantly well. We got to know each other quite well over the past sort of 6 months or so. But we bonded a lot over our likes and dislikes and our contrary approaches to various different things. But when you're on a Zoom call doing beer tasting with people you've never met, or you're just embracing those discussions about brewing and what the future of brewing is, it becomes really apparent from the sort of lowest level up to the highest level of marketing that everyone's kind of just really into it, and it's soul food. It really is, and I love it. And long may this continue. And I think it will. I think it's a really bright future.
Like you say, America. You look at the scene in America, and it's sort of far advanced from where we are, which gives you hope that there's still a lot of expansion for the craft scene in this country.
And there's a lot of problems. Let's talk about really basic things which the UK don't do very well, which is storage. If you buy a beer from wholesalers and it comes to you, that's been in a van typically, there's
It's interesting because
storage.
I was in your shop the other day when you got a delivery, and the guy turns up in his van, and you sort of think, well, how long has that? I don't know if it was a refrigerated van, and maybe it was.
It was Jolly Good Beer, so
I think it was actually. Yep. That may not always be the case, and you don't know what path that's taken to get to you.
As far as I'm aware, Jolly Good Beer are the only wholesaler in the country doing end-to-end cold storage. And absolutely big up to Ivan. I just said big up. I'm 44. Jesus, that's embarrassing.
You got to get down with the kids. It's all right.
Massive props to Ivan, the team at Jolly Good Beer. They've invested everything. I think their sanity to a point as well, of embracing the American cold storage culture, which is basically when it leaves a brewery, it's never not refrigerated until it hits your fridges, and you must have fridges.
And you do, plenty of them.
Yeah, it's really, really important. Craft beer is not built to not be in fridges.
Unless it's a stout.
Unless it's certain kinds of beer. But pales, IPAs, lagers, things like that. But sours, they rapidly deteriorate if you don't refrigerate them. So as soon as you put them in a van on a hot day, coming from the brewery, and by the time it hits you, it's basically not lived the life the brewery intended.
Yeah.
In America, that's unheard of. If you tried to do that in America, you'd be struck off. You wouldn't be allowed to sell beer. And
shot.
Like that. But this is just part of the course. And when I say we're a decade behind, that's why. The infrastructure's not there. The mentality of the recycling process that goes on around kegs and cans and things like that is not there like it is in America. But the cold storage thing in particular is... I'm not convinced it's going to be there for many, many, many years, to be honest with you. And that's a little bit upsetting, I think, because it doesn't give retailers, I guess, the toolkit they need to present the produce at the best possible light, in the best possible light that it could be sold at, and it might not be noticeable to a lot of people, but believe me, when it is noticeable, it's noticeable, and that deterioration happens really, really fast, and that's a shame. But
if anybody's buying beers from you, rest assured that they're being tip top shape.
We try, and we use the wholesalers. I said one wholesaler who does do that, and we talk to our wholesalers about trying to make that happen. In terms of refrigeration, and they want to make it happen, but there's no support from the government. There's no kind of desire outside of, I guess, the classic pub scene to create an infrastructure, a logistical supply chain that helps the beer.
It's almost like the government regard the whole craft scene as like a little cottage industry almost.
Yeah, well, you're not going to get fallen acorn in cloisters, but they simply don't care. But I think if I look into the future with sort of rose-tinted spectacles, one of the benefits of selling it to big supermarkets is the clout that these may have in terms of representing a brewer. Yeah. So, if in the future they, we get some, well, fingers crossed, some kind of empathy or sympathy with small artisanal brewers or producers, that they go, okay, we need to present beer in a better light. Hey, government, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to, support us in any way? Great. Will that happen? Probably not. Let's be honest. But it's a nice dream to have. Go back to the original point, which I've lost track of. We're waffling a little bit, but I think the symbiotic relationship between breweries and independent bottle shops and tap rooms and things of that ilk is a relationship which I believe is going to be pretty concrete going forward. I hope so, and I can see that strengthening massively. We should pass comments on this beer, which I don't think we've done yet.
Oh yeah, we forgot about that, didn't we? I tell you what, I think this is my favourite of the three beers we've drunk tonight.
I agree.
This is excellent. It really is.
What I got with this was every facial expression and emotion I always go through when I have a sour IPA, which is despondency, pain, surprise, wistful looking into the future, and then it settles down as just a wonderful, wonderful drink. And
so we should, for those who aren't drinking it with us, we should say there's yuzu and gooseberry in this sour IPA, and I said to you before, before I got involved in the craft scene, I didn't know what yuzu was. Does anybody know what yuzu is? Who isn't in the craft scene? I don't think so.
I think she did the early ways up in about 1986.
That was 1988, actually. No,
that was Yaz. I'm talking about yuzu now. Yeah.
Good song that.
It's posh lime. It's Waitrose lime. That's what
Waitrose lime. But this is very nice. I don't drink many beers twice, but I could drink this again.
Yeah, and for me, this is kind of that. I really adore sour IPAs. The connection I think we mentioned earlier between different types of beer. I mean, but for me, lambics and gooses and things like that are just the best thing in the world, and I think that's just the evolution of a beer drinker. You ultimately end up. I think when you start beer drinking, you go right. Pales, IPAs, hoppy the better, hoppy the better. Oh, screw it.
Yeah.
And then you go back to lager. But at the same time, you're kind of embracing the more classical Belgian approaches, and lambics and gooses and that kind of wild fermentation stuff is just, for me, the most interesting thing and stuff I enjoy the most when I open that up. Same with Hannah when we crack open a bottle of something interesting. And this has got that reminiscence of that kind of thing. It's not by any stretch the same style, but it's got all that.
There's a lot going on here, isn't there?
It's all that clear, that wild fermentation, or that mixed fermentation in this case, sort of approach to it. And you can taste the yuzu.
Yeah.
Posh lime. Definitely posh lime. And it keeps you going back for more because
it does. Yeah.
It's got that sort of bittery sourness and tartness that you kind of just want to extinguish in a bit more liquid.
Yeah.
So you have a bit more beer, and you're just going, yeah, this is working really well. So,
and while we've been chatting, we've both been drinking away here. Neither of us have got a great deal left. We've been going, like you just said, going back for more and more, and that's very good. Excellent
beer. Really, really impressive.
I wonder whose influence this is. Is it Brick or is it Pastore? Do you think?
It's Pastore all over.
I think so.
I mean, it's. I don't know if they've got a signature taste. I think it's quite hard to be signature when you mix firming and while firming, but. If someone said to me, "You're drinking a Pastore," I'd go, "Yeah, I have no problem believing that."
Yeah,
and I'll get that with pretty much everything they do, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I think Pastore, maybe not. I don't know if they're the forefront. That's up for debate, but they're definitely the kind of up there with that kind of leading lights of fermentation breweries.
Yeah,
wild fermentation breweries. That's really smashing it out the park at the moment.
Yeah, I found them in the first lockdown. Put an order in, and I was blown away by what I got back.
Yeah, absolutely. And just shouting out to some of the breweries like that. Obviously, there's Yonder as well doing good stuff. Mills Brewing, who, ping pong between almost lambic-esque beers and cider. Simple Things Fermentation. I'm missing loads on the spot, but there's just some amazing wild fermentation breweries knocking around at the moment.
I should actually give a shout out at this point. You gave a big up to. I'm going to give a shout out to Yonder for their cherry pie. Have you had that?
Yeah.
Now, a recurring theme on this podcast is that nobody can do a cherry Bakewell beer.
Uh-huh.
That is cherry Bakewell in a can.
Yeah.
But they don't even call it cherry Bakewell, it's just cherry pie. But
that's right, they chickened out.
They chickened out, but God, they nailed it. It was spot on. Really good.
They also had their blueberry pie.
The blueberry one, it's all right. It wasn't quite as good as the cherry one, I didn't think. But
well, I didn't pay for it, so it was even better for me. So it was great. But that's going to be taste, isn't it? But if you can make good quality beers all the time through wild ingredients, through a process of brewing which is famously difficult to keep, I guess, quantitative, and keep that quality involved in, then you're doing something right. And I think it must be the cider heritage in the UK, because that's transferred really nicely into the wild fermentation brewing approach, and some amazing people knocking stuff out at the moment. Yeah, I mean that's a really when you mentioned what's the craft beer scene, where's it going and what's the future like. I think I'm hoping, fingers crossed, people embrace that side of things. That old fashioned medieval even approach to brewing that's been really sort of contained and become a real kind of... I think the Americans can't do it, let's put it that way. So I think that's something the UK have got on the Americans.
Do you think that in 5 or 10 years' time, the traditional British pub will end up dying out because places like your bar have taken over?
I hope not.
You live a British...
Awful man. Why would you say that?
But I would much rather come to your place than a traditional British pub.
Oh, God, I hope not. No, we want you in our place, obviously.
But you love a traditional pub, don't you? I know that. Especially if they've got Coors Light on. You love a bit of Coors Light, don't you?
Look, I will go into a late night karaoke bar and drink Coors Light. I'm not a snob. But yeah, I think you got to remember in the 80s that keg beer became a thing. Crap mass-produced lager, macro-produced lager nearly killed the cask industry. Cask is a tradition. It's a skill. It's artisanal brewing, even though it's really, really obviously popular in the UK and the actual forefront of what we consider a pub. But if we lost that because of young upstarts coming in with their
young upstarts like you,
stupid bloody keg beer, I mean, I'd be absolutely gutted.
So you think there's a place for both?
There's a place in my heart, a place in my stomach, and there's definitely a place in the world for it.
Oh, we've polished that off fairly quickly while chatting away. Hope you enjoyed it, and I reckon that's about it, really. I think we're there.
Enjoyed that. Thank you, Dave.
Did you enjoy that? Wasn't too traumatic for you?
Drinking in a loft with a bearded man is my dream.
We make dreams come true here at Daftaboutcraft. So hopefully you've been drinking along with us, and if you haven't, then there's no excuse. You should do it next time. Watch our social media, watch Instagram, and you'll see us post 3 more beers in a few weeks' time. Get those from hall-beer.com. Put in the code DAFTHALL, get 15% off, and then you can drink them as we're drinking them, and we can compare notes. Tell us what you think on Instagram, and we'll maybe relay some of your comments on the next episode. And if you're ever in Stourbridge, here in the West Midlands, get yourself down to Hall Beer Shop. And Paul or Hannah will be there to service your every need.